Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hi,
Hey,
Jamie.
Aileen, how are you?
Good. How's it
So
going?
it's so beautiful here today, isn't it?
It is like spring.
I finally. Well, hopefully it's beautiful where all of you are today in our audience. I just want to welcome you to this afternoon's program. I'm Jamie Seward, Associate Director of Affinity Engagement Programs with the Office of Alumni Relations. And before we proceed, I'd like to acknowledge our sponsor, the Arts, Entertainment, Media, and Entrepreneurship Affinity, and our other sponsor, the Healthcare Affinity, and not to mention Innovation Initiatives. Now, before I introduce Aileen, I encourage you to ask questions by typing them in the Zoom Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We'll have time to answer your questions at the end of the program. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Aileen Lin. She's the CEO and Creative Director of Austriata. She's directed, designed, and coordinated projects for more than 22 years. With her background in psychology, visual communication, design, and usability, she offers a multifaceted approach to projects, applying best practices from scientific, behavioral, and design perspectives. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Johns Hopkins University and a Master of Arts degree in Medical and Biological Illustration from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. She's provided clients with comprehensive design solutions that include branding, strategy, identity systems, print design, web design, and usability testing. So we are very lucky to have her here today. And without further ado, I will turn the program over to you.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Jamie. And thank you everyone for taking the time to be here today. It's nice to be back here with the Hopkins community, and I'm hoping I can share some of the things that I've learned since I've been at Hopkins. So over the past 2 decades, I would say, while working with websites and user interfaces, I've seen a lot change, but all along we've worked on creating a good user experience for people. So some of the things that we've seen change are just how people consume information. And as you know, everything is online now. That's where people go to get information they need. So I feel that the ability to find information and and also the fact that it's engaging and easy to understand is really important because that leads to knowledge, and knowledge leads to empowerment. So I think that allows people to then make informed decisions, and that's what we hope to do in our design, is to help people get that information to do that. So what I'm hoping that you'll walk away with today are some methods that you can take to manage that user experience for your website or projects or app, and just ensure that people are able to do what they need to do. So you'll see that user experience isn't something that is happen chance. It's actually something that you create, and you can actually measure it objectively. So what I've got here is slides that I'm going to share with you. And all right, here we go. So I wanted to ask everyone here, how many of you have been on a website where you've been really frustrated, and you're so frustrated that you abandon it right away? And that's something that we don't want you to see. We don't want you to do on the websites that you're creating or your users do. I apologize. There's technical difficulty there. Um, so something that is important to understand is that users often decide within 10 seconds whether they stay or go. And 85% of people abandon the website due to poor design. 83% leave because a website takes too many clicks. And so you can see with all this research here, there's a lot of reasons, good reasons, why you would want to mitigate these risks. And I think another important point to make too is that it's not just the dissatisfied user. That user is going to be telling other, I think the slides are a little bit out of hand here. I'm going to actually stop sharing the slides for a second because I think it's a little bit distracting right now. Um, so I think what's important to remember is that the dissatisfied user is going to tell tell someone else, and that spreads and spreads to other people. So in fact, there has been research that shows that dissatisfied user is going to tell um, maybe uh, apologize, tell 13% of those of their friends, and that's going to actually amplify and increase. Um, and I am going to try a different method here. Again, see if we can get this to work. All right. Hopefully you can see the slides now. All right. And I think it's important too to remember that design is it's not just something that's aesthetic. It's something where, you know, form follows function, and it's important that it works. So for example, you know, a lot of people spend a lot of time on SEO, and it's great if you can get everyone to your website, but at the same time, if they can't do what they need to do, then, you know, it doesn't matter. So, you know, that's why we really emphasize the ability to navigate to the information. And the research out there supports that. So every dollar that you spend on user research returns about $10 to $100. And correcting that problem early on is even, even more useful for people. So you really want to minimize your risks, and you want to also be able to save the time and money that would go into redoing something at the end. If you're not evaluating it early on in your process, then you're actually going to end up spending a lot more in the end. And so I'm just sharing you some of the other research that other organizations there have done. And to give you an idea of, you know, the type of investment you're looking at, it's about 10% of your development budget on usability. And so that's going to improve your conversion by 83%. So how do we do this? I think that's a big question. Well, we start out with what we call design thinking. And so the idea behind design thinking is really putting yourself in the user's shoes. So you want to be able to empathize with what are some of the things that people are trying to do on the website. What are the pain points that they have? And you define this. And then from there, you're going to be brainstorming on ideas. And, you know, you're going to start creating prototypes. But what's really important is that you want to then test those prototypes. And with this, what you're going to be doing is you want to really understand the user journey and the customer journey here. So part of that journey is, first of all, how do they discover you? And then how are they going to evaluate the website that they're on? And how do they buy, whether it's services or just buy into the content that you're giving to them? How are they accessing it? And once they do become a customer, how are they continuing to use your site or your application? And if they have any trouble with it, how are they getting support? And you want to see how you're going to re-engage them. How do you keep them coming back, or do they decide to leave? So some of the ways that people have done this is, in terms of getting to know their audience, is that they'll create user personas. And you know, with user personas, what you're trying to do is, again, put yourself in the user's shoes. So you're looking at demographics, different scenarios of how they might be using the website. You know, what's going to motivate them to do, take certain actions, and then what are some barriers or fears, frustrations they might have. What are their needs? How does the site help them meet their aspirations that they have? And you really want to get that truly exceptional experience. So with, you know, this method, it's good. You're making some assumptions based on some research on the user. And you may also be looking at things such as surveys or analytics. These are all different types of user research that you can do. And today I'm going to focus on a couple of these, mainly the card sorting, um, tree testing, and task-based usability testing. So you'll see here, I also have analytics. And, you know, when I ask people, how are they currently measuring their user experience? Most of them are going to tell me that they're looking at their web analytics. And this is a great tool. You know, you're going to find out how many people are coming to what pages, how much time they're spending, you know, or they might be looking at heat maps. I kind of have an idea of where people are going on the website. So the thing with this is that there is a lot of information that is missing. Oh, and I apologize. It looks like some people are not able to see the slides. Is that correct? I am going to reshare my screen. Hopefully that is better.
That looks good, Aileen. It looks good to me.
Okay, thanks. Were you able to see it before, Jamie?
I was. If you
Okay,
have any issues and want to share it with me, I can also share my screen. You're
okay.
doing great though.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So, you know, in terms of these tools, these are great, but one of the biggest things that's missing from here is you don't really know why people are doing what they're doing. You know, what are they thinking when they're doing these things? So, for example, you might know that someone is taking about 2 minutes on the page, and you're thinking, this is great. People are more engaged. But the fact is, you don't really know if they're engaged or maybe they're just lost on the site and they can't find what they need. And that's what you don't want, and you want to avoid that. And so when I talk about usability, what am I talking about? These are some of the criteria that we look at. You know, is the interface easy to learn? So for example, you don't want people to have to try to memorize where to go on your website, where things are. It should be pretty intuitive and easy to learn. And is it efficient? So is it quick to learn how to use a site? And it's a memorable site too. You know, you do want to have, it's not just about, it's also about, I guess, the feeling and the impact that you're making. And how many errors are people making on the website? And when I'm talking about errors, I'm talking about how many wrong clicks they're making to find the information. And then, of course, how satisfied they are. And so a lot of common issues that we see on websites is that people say it's hard to find information. Some people are getting low conversion rates. They're getting too many support calls, too many emails. And a lot of times the mission is just not very clear to people when they come to the site. They don't really know what you do or what you're about. And so again, you know, to reiterate some of the user research that you can do, these are typically the ones we see, and these are the ones I'm going to focus on because I think you would benefit a lot from learning about these techniques. And some of them really aren't very hard to conduct. So the first one I'm going to talk about is card sorting. And what card sorting is great with is dealing with that first issue I mentioned where people are having a hard time navigating through the website. And a lot of that may have to do with the labels on your navigation and also how you're grouping information. So what you would do here is, and you can do it virtually or on index cards, which is how people used to do it. And you write down the names of the sections of your websites and important pages, and you're going to ask someone in your target audience to sort these cards, basically group them in different places, or I guess group them in groups that make sense to them. And you could have them group it in labeled sections that you've already determined, or you can actually have them label it themselves, because sometimes we're too close to the project itself that something that is intuitive to us isn't intuitive to other people. And there are two types. So there are those two types of card sorting, open versus closed. So the open one is when you allow them to label the group themselves. And the closed card sorting is when you already give them the label. And this is you know, qualitative type of research. And you need about 15 to 30 people to do that. And what that might look like virtually is something like this, where on the left side I have the list of all the different pages on the site. And you would just drag each of these boxes into groups of what you think makes sense. And then you can rename that section. And the results of this type of testing might look like this. So you might see a similarity matrix where you see where there's consensus among users. So that gives you an idea that, hey, this label makes sense to people. And then, of course, areas where there's less consensus. And this is another way to look at it too, in terms of where the agreement comes. So here, for example, people thought white papers, publications, webinars, best practices, and courses all fell in the label education, and that made sense to them. And labeling is really important because what I've seen a lot on websites is, I think there was a trend to use verbs in your navigation. For example, connect, learn. And I think the thought behind that was if you give an active verb, it would make it more engaging to people. And I think conceptually that sounds good, but the fact is it's not very clear. So for example, with a lot of the testing I've done, when people see the word connect, there's some people are thinking about social media, some people are thinking of forums, and then the client we're working with thinks of webinars. And so that can potentially be very confusing to people. So we find actually with navigation, you're probably best off going with something more conventional because the idea is to get to the information quickly. If you want to be creative, there are a lot of other areas that you can be creative with on the website. So the second type of testing I'm going to mention here is tree testing. And for this, now we're testing the page organization and the flow of the pages. So how do you get to point A to point B? And what's nice about this type of testing is that you're not testing with a design yet because there's so many elements that go into the design, it can be distracting. We really want to distill it to the essential, the pure organization of it. And again, this is qualitative. And you need about 30 participants. And what this looks like, or these are the results. Actually, I'm going to go back here. So what you do to get these type of results is it's almost like an outline that you're clicking on, and you would give a user a task. You could say, please find the white paper on this website, and then you would see all the links that they would click on, and they're just the labels that you came up with. And so the type of results you would get, for example, are how many people were able to complete the task, how long it took them to complete it, how direct that path was. And then you can see also, how if there was a common pathway in terms of how people got to the information. And here's another view of pathways. And this is kind of interesting too, because a lot of times people will organize content in a way that might make sense to them internally, but then their target audience may see it differently. And what I've seen a lot too is that when it's not intuitive to people, people go straight to the search on the website. And then if your search isn't very effective, they still can't find the information. So those are things you want to avoid. And then the other thing I see too is because people can't find anything, people start putting shortcuts or little, a little key for them to find information. And so typically, with something that is well organized, you shouldn't have to do any of that. So the last type of testing I want to talk about is task-based usability testing. And I really think this, if you can't do any of the other testing, whether it's because of time or budget, I think task-based usability testing is really where you get the most out of your investment. And the idea behind this, and obviously the name says it, is that it's task-based. And because what people say they're going to do is often different from what they do. And through this, you're gaining a lot of human insights. We're going to collect some objective data too, and it can be done remotely or in person. It is qualitative. And what's great is you really only need 5 users for each target audience. The research has actually shown that you will uncover 80% of the issues on a website with just 5 users. And what it takes is, there are a lot of applications out there that allow you to do this, but I always recommend that you have a skilled facilitator who can moderate the session. Because what happens a lot, if you don't have a moderator, some people, they're not used to speaking out loud as they navigate through a website because that's not very natural to do that. And so with a moderator, you can, prompt them to remember to think out loud. And you can also follow up with questions to find out why they're doing what they're doing. So to do this, you're going to put together a script as to what the questions are, and you would ask the person to complete a task. And what you're doing is you're observing what they're doing, where they're clicking, and some of the things that, and I'm sorry, here's the process. So again, you identify your target audience. You're going to find 3 to 5 most important tasks. And I say that because a session should be about 20 to 30 minutes, so that's not too taxing on the user. I like to have a survey at the end of this. That's not mandatory, but I think a survey is a great way to get some ratings on usability. And you want to think about, how are you going to recruit the people? Do you need to compensate them? And of course, it's really important to get their consent that you're recording this session, and whether or not you're sharing this information with any other third party. And there are a lot of recording and survey tools out there for you. And so this might be what it looks like. I am going to play a little recording for you so you can get an idea of what that sounds or feels like too. So this is a scenario where we've asked a undergraduate college student to take a look at a website and to see how they might go about the site to apply. And I will find, okay, let me play that. Find out what you need to do to apply.
Oh, never mind. It asked you to do that.
So was that what you expected to find when you clicked on apply today?
No.
What were you thinking would happen?
Like information on what you need to have to be ready to go through all these steps.
Right. Okay. How did that make you feel when you saw this?
Shocked, but not really.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay. So what would you do next then?
Well, is bypass that, or is it everything is under, you have to create an account.
Okay. Now, does that deter you from finding out, or what would you do? Like, would you go ahead and sign in or not? Okay.
No.
Okay. And what are you thinking? Like, why wouldn't you want to sign in yet?
Because when I was looking for information for computer science, for website design, I was looking for at different schools, and then all of a sudden I put my email in to get more information. Then I'm all of a sudden I get 30 different schools calling me. So find out what you need to do to. So I think hopefully you can see from that clip that I just shared. Apply. I'm sorry. Oops, I gotta get back on. So you'll see from that clip that I shared that it's really important to think about the user journey. He was immediately taken to this account creation, and really at that point, the user isn't ready to create an account. And I think sometimes there is, people feel a need to have what they call a call to action on the website right away. They want people to take action, to contact them, to fill out a form. And you need to make sure that it comes at the right point. Does the person have the information they need to make that decision that they even want to sign in yet? And a common issue I see too is sometimes with these websites, there are a lot of different systems that have to connect to each other. So I'm sure the application, how that's done might be on a different system. You have to sign in now.
So you want that the user to know what to expect, and also that transition is a smooth one. And then you can see from this session in just that short time span that we watched that there were a lot of other insights we gained. So we learned a lot about some of the fears and barriers that the user experiences in filling out a form. They don't want to get spammed. So a lot of these insights can really inform your strategy on how you design the user experience on your website. And so on the slide here, I talk a little bit about some of the type of analysis that we make in addition to those insights that you just saw. So keep in mind, that was just a couple minutes, but what we learn in 20 minutes is really, I always learn something new, and it's really very valuable. But some of the objective data that we also try to collect is how long does it take someone to finish a task? Because we know that people are busy. They don't have a lot of time. They're not going to spend a lot of time on the task. You don't want to lose them. The number of errors, meaning number of wrong clicks they make. Can they even complete the task? Are there common pathways that people are taking? And again, as I mentioned, I like to have a survey at the end so I can get some sort of rating. So on a scale of 1 to 5, was the website easy to use? Was it well organized? And I also like to do reaction cards. So this was invented a long time ago with IBM, where they give you a bunch of adjectives to choose from. So you kind of get an idea of what people think and feel about the website. And something that's really helpful too is if you can do this type of testing before your redesign and after your redesign, so that you get a baseline comparison. And I find that the ability to show a before and after really can show the value of the investment that you've made. And one thing to keep in mind too is that with usability testing, you don't have to wait for a redesign. You can do these tests anytime and make incremental changes. Maybe it's just relabeling the nav bar and not a complete website redesign. So it's something that's good to have as a strategy, an ongoing strategy, because websites, I feel, are living documents. They're always changing all the time. So whether you're starting a new campaign or adding a new section, it's good to test it every now and then. So I'm going to give you an example of some results we've seen. So some projects we've worked on, for example, DailyMed is a website that we created for the National Library of Medicine, and it is the only place where you can get all the FDA information about, or all information about FDA approved drugs. And one of the issues they were having back then was that when people would search for something, they weren't sure if they got the right information. And this is really important because people were often looking at medications because maybe they lost the little insert that comes with your medication, and they need to make sure there weren't going to be any conflicts of what they were taking. Maybe they were looking it up for a parent. And so from the usability testing, we found that just showing a little thumbnail of the packaging was enough to give people the confidence that they were choosing the right information. So it's little things like that that make a big difference. And so we've done this type of testing with a lot of sites, and I just want to show you the type of results that we get. So here is a word cloud to kind of visually show you the difference. So on the left is before, and the size of the words show you the number of times someone chose that word. So before, people were really associating the site with time consuming, which is not what you want. You see some words confusing. There are some positive ones too, which are good, but you see things like frustrating or stressful as well, hard to use. And after our redesign, using the methodology that I shared with you today, these were the adjectives that people were choosing, mainly useful, high quality, appealing, easy to use, relevant, clean, usable. And I think the wonderful thing about it too is that all of the negative adjectives were gone. And so this is a great way to evaluate and measure measure the results that you're getting. And here again, I just want to show you some before and after results that we've gotten. So we've been able to see progress where task completion rate have gone from 60% to 100%. Time to complete a task went from 163 to 42 seconds. Number of errors, average 5 to 6 errors trying to find something, to 0 errors. And usability rating, we've seen go to 5 points to 7 points, being a Likert scale of 1 to 7. And some of the insights that we gained from people too, before people were saying things like, this is old fashioned, it's static, it's hard to find something. And after, we're hearing people say that this is one of the most organized sites we've seen. And here's another quote, someone felt that the site before was generic, they could get this anywhere else. And that's definitely not what you want on your website. Their reaction after was that it's very informative, it's giving me a resource, and now they're even gonna book this. So I think, those are the type of results, you definitely would want to see on your site. And I think, some other things we've seen engagement double for people. And here are some quotes too from different places. So again, it's not just about the wow factor or the beautiful design. If you're making something easier for someone to do, something that's seamless, effortless, that's what's going to get them to come back. And here, this is a quote from Forbes: delivering some of the most actionable insights critical to make informed business decisions. User experience has the capacity to create new business models that go on to become a necessary part of our evolving digital landscape and everyday existence. So I hope I've been able to give you a quick overview of what you can do to really give people the best user experience possible and how you can also measure that. I think one thing that's important to note too is that while there is a methodology to this, I think it's important to also understand usability testing doesn't mean that you're going to be compromising creativity either. You can definitely do a lot of creative work and also make sure it's usable. I think it's the balance of creativity, design, these insights, and technology is what's going to get you the best results possible. So I hope I've been able to offer something helpful today. I have my contact information here if anyone needs to contact me. And I'd like to open it up for questions at this point.
Yes, hi. If anyone has any questions, we'd love to take advantage of Eileen here. If you would just put them in the Zoom Q&A located at the bottom of your screen. So we'll just give you a few minutes to think of some questions you might have. If you don't, that's okay too, because she has been gracious enough to give us her email address, which is lovely, and phone number. I actually do have a question for you. Oh, we have Claudia. Thank you, Claudia. Can you talk about the difference between customer experience and user experience?
Sure, that's a great question. So when I say user experience, I'm specifically talking about that user coming on your website and what they're doing. Whereas a customer experience is definitely a more holistic point of view, in the sense of you want to think about how, what else are they doing, and what other, say, like marketing materials that they're getting. Was there an email campaign? Are they getting print collateral, and support? So it involves, I guess, a lot of other different aspects and parties that influence that experience. So hopefully that helps to answer that question.
Hi, sorry, I have my barking coworkers. Someone was kind enough to say great presentation. I agree. Can you give us some examples of how an open card sort experiment would work? This question, the person asking this question says they're having a hard time imagining how you would structure that and engage participants.
Sure. So
well, I guess with the participants, they've I guess agreed to participate. So I think hopefully they'll be engaged at that point. But you know, I think explaining to them the purpose of it, of course, understanding, that they're the way they're thinking and what's intuitive to them is very important. And so you have the names of these sections, whether it's the sections of the website or pages. And I can go, let's see if I can also try to find that slide again. But what you're going to do is you're going to ask them to group them into what's logical to them. And so with the open card sort, the difference is that you're going to ask them to label it. So for example, here's some sections and page names on this website. And so they're going to drag these into groups that make sense to them. And then they're going to decide what that name is. And I think something that I find with people is, I think when people come to a website and they feel that they can't find information, they think it's their fault. And it really isn't. They always think it's user error. They're always like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I think that's really important too, to convey to them, we're not testing you, right? It's not about you. It's really about, are we successful with the interface that we've designed for you? And so I think that's really important too, is that the people participating need to feel, and they are, their input is valuable, and that it's not about how good they are or how tech savvy they are. So I hope that helps to answer, what open card sorting is, and how you can engage people to participate in that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Everyone seems to have enjoyed the presentation, and yes, Yvonne, you're right. It's very important now with everything being online. So I have another good question. How do you balance UX with the CTA on a landing page? Many landing pages don't have full site navigation to drive conversion, like for example, filling out a form, but might not be what the user necessarily wants.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think you have to, page prioritize to what you want people to do. So I think, having a lot of multiple call to actions can contribute to a more negative user experience. I think each page should have a clear focus and hierarchy of information that you want to lead them to. And as I showed an example too, having that call to action at an appropriate moment is important too. So if they don't have the information they need yet, maybe it's not the time to do it yet. And I think you don't want it to be in their face either. Like sometimes you go to a site and it pops up with something, they want you to fill it out right away. I think it's important to give users a choice. You don't want to force anything upon them. So that will also help with the user experience. And I think you want to be transparent with your call to action. So I think it's really helpful to tell people, hey, we're not going to spam you, or tell them like, we're going to send you newsletters, and that's okay to be transparent. It's not like you want to trick people on your website, because if they don't want it, they're just going to unsubscribe anyway. So you're really not losing anything by being transparent about it. And again, I think, as far as call to actions, and I'm using forms as an example because that's a very common way to, you want someone to fill out the form because you're trying to capture some lead generation information. I think in terms of any errors that they get, like, so the way you write your error messages are important too. Like, you don't want to have something that makes them feel bad, like, that screams user error in bright red and kind of is alarmist. You want it to be a very friendly thing, and I think that's an important way to bring a better user experience to call to actions. I'm trying to think if there are any other situations or other methods, but I think those are probably the main ones that I would look at first. And you're right, it is everything's a balance, and it's striking that perfect balance, which is the challenge.
Well, this has been very informative. I see we don't have any more questions, but everyone will get your contact information in the follow-up email along with a recording of this program. So I really do thank you for your time and your talent. It's always so nice to talk to you and see your face. And I really appreciate you sharing this all of this great information with our audience today. And to our audience, thank you for being here. I'll share a follow-up email with you with a list of resources in our event schedule. And we hope you will join us at a future webinar. We hope we see you soon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Jamie, and thanks everyone for listening.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Get out there and enjoy the beautiful weather if you're in Maryland.
Bye.
Bye.